Well, Kosta, we've got so much to talk about tonight. MAGA's in a war over whether we're in a war. We'll tell you where your tax dollars really went. And Leslie Jones tries to fix men. Good luck. Ha! So let's get into the latest on America's war with Iran.
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
We are now 4 days into this war, and it's going great. It's definitely not expanding into an ever-widening regional conflict that puts Americans in immediate danger.
Overnight, the State Department issuing its strongest warning yet, urging U.S. nationals to depart now.
The State Department advising Americans to evacuate from 14 countries, covering most of the Middle East.
Things are escalating fast. Americans now have to evacuate from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and several other countries where Louis C.K. does stand-up. Of course, the problem with evacuating from a war zone is that all the airports are closed. And I'm sure our government planned for this. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, help us out. Tell the stranded Americans how to get home.
The Israeli Ministry of Tourism is providing bus service from several locations.
I'm sorry, you want us to take a bus out of a war zone? In the movies, there's a chopper outside, and a Navy SEAL comes down on a rope, and he pulls you on board, and he says, "You're gonna make it in time for your daughter's birthday." But you're sitting there telling me, it's fine, take the Greyhound. There's no Wi-Fi, and the bathroom works as long as you don't poop in it. By the way, is this the official ambassador outfit these days? He looks like the guy who sits outside of a gas station and gives you directions to someplace in the woods where he can kill you. But you know what? I'm sure that mass evacuations aside, the rest of the war is going great.
Breaking news.
The U.S. Central Command says 3 fighter jets were shot down by friendly fire from Kuwaiti forces. CENTCOM says all 6 crew members aboard the jets ejected, were safely recovered, and are in stable condition.
Okay, now, I know it's not great that our allies shot our planes down, but the good news is that they were probably using the missiles we sold them, so at least we know they work. By the way, can we come up with a new name for friendly fire? Shooting your friend's plane down seems like the least friendly thing you could do. Imagine you find your best friend banging your spouse, and he's like, relax, just a little friendly penetration. But you know what? The pilots are okay. We'll just buy some new planes. What do they cost?
We should note that the estimates of costs on these F-15 Strike Eagle jets range from anywhere from $30 million per unit all the way up to $100 million.
Up to $100 million each? You may have lost $300 million in one friendly penetration incident? I mean, look, I live in New York, so I am used to seeing obscene amounts of money wasted on jets, but still, $300 million. Oh! $300 million is crazy. Now, but on the other hand, if we watch the video in reverse, I just saved us $300 million, so not bad for the old Kosta. And the most upsetting thing about this is that it's all happening under a president who promised that this wasn't going to happen.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. No new wars. We don't need the wars. My personality is going to keep us out of wars. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. I will stop the chaos in the Middle East.
Well, 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 looks like we caught Donald Trump in a lie. That ought to do it for his presidency, huh? Not bad for the old Kosta. You're welcome, America. All right. So to Trump supporters, I'm sorry, but you have to admit he's gone back on his promise by starting a new war.
This isn't a war. We haven't declared war on Iran.
I don't know if this is technically a war.
Strategic strikes are not war.
Nobody should classify this as war. It is combat operations.
Sure. It's a strategic combat operations. Guys, you can call it whatever you want. We all know it's a war. This reminds me of how my Aunt Trudy, she used to bring her so-called roommate to Thanksgiving every year. We all knew they weren't roommates. They were soulmates, and they were scissoring. The war with Iran is just like my 2 gay aunts. Shown here exactly how they look. By the way, this all seems a little familiar. Where else have I recently heard such a pathetic attempt to not call a war a war?
Russian forces began hitting targets in Ukraine overnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced what he called a special military operation. He refused to call it a war.
Ah, great. Always good for the country to have the same messaging strategy as Vladimir Putin. We don't need Trump copying more shit Putin does. It's a slippery slope that could lead to the worst possible scenario, Trump going shirtless. And I know they don't want to admit it's a war because that would require Congress's approval and directly contradict President Trump's promises. But they're also so desperate not to call it a war that one conservative newscaster is arguing with his own graphics package.
All right, war with Iran? Maybe it's war in Iran.
War from Iran? War via Iran? What if we combine them? War-ran? Is that anything? Look, call whatever you want. A war, a combat operation, international fight club. How long is this thing going to take?
This is not an endless war.
This is not endless.
The president doesn't believe in endless wars.
This is no forever war, as Trump critics keep complaining.
Yeah. Okay, but that's not as comforting as you think it is. Don't worry, everyone. This war will last a number below infinity years. But okay, fine. At least we know this war won't be fought forever.
Breaking overnight, President Trump touting that the U.S. has a, quote, virtually unlimited supply of weapons. The president posting on Truth Social in part, wars can be fought forever.
Great news, everyone. Now the war never has to end. I guess I'm happy for Trump that we have unlimited weapons, but it's worth considering what all these weapons cost and whether we could be better spending that money on something else here at home. I mean, we lost hundreds of millions of dollars in a single friendly fire incident. And some estimates say that the entire war could cost over $200 billion. Yet here in America, people don't have health care. Our infrastructure is crumbling. My local library is only open 2 days a week, which means for 5 days a week, I have to masturbate at home. It's shameful. If there was only some image that could symbolize the confidence I have in our country's elected leaders right now. Yep, that's it.